Good evening. We will call the Board of Education meeting to order and have roll call, please.
Dyke.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Frisbee.
Here.
Maycumber.
Here.
Wintering.
Here.
Salinas.
Here.
All present and accounted for. Reading of the mission statement by Director Maycumber.
Our mission is to engage, inspire, and empower students and staff in order to maximize learning.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, the approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections, changes?
No. Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as published. Roll call vote, please.
Wintering.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes. Motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 4, welcome the visitors and have public comment. First off, we'd like to say that we're very gracious to the community of Floyd for allowing us to come up and have our meeting in their facility. It's the second time we've done that in the last couple of years. So for those of you viewing us on television, you have a different background. We're in the community center. Are there any public comments this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, comments by board members and superintendent, and we'll begin with Dr. Cox.
Thanks. As President Dyke mentioned, we are here in Floyd tonight. It's part of the board's commitment to taking board meetings out to different parts of the school district. And as a reminder, on May 22nd, we will be at the Caldwell Community Center. I want to send congratulations to our 2017 prom king and queen, Zion Jordan and Hannah Menken. And then lastly, late last week, the district received several honors at the annual Iowa School Public Relations Association Awards ceremony, and Justin will have a full report at our next board meeting.
Thank you.
I would like to say that I attended prom this weekend, and I know a lot of the school did, the upperclassmen, and we all enjoyed it. It was very well put together. Credits to Loyal Walker and the group of 11 juniors that dedicated their time and effort to put that together and missed a day of school Friday to make that all happen for Grand March, and then to the parents of the juniors that helped coordinate that and staff the post-prom, which was excellent as well. Great time and great people as well.
Thank you. Any other comments by board members?
The only comment I have to make that I and Mr. Wolf and Pat Ridinghouse attended a meeting at the First Security Bank for a scholarship deal there, and then we just decided, how much money they were going to spend with it. And the committee will decide who's going to go to, but we just had a yearly meeting, and we were the only ones that were in attendance. Mr. Smith, he was out of the country, and I don't know why they couldn't get the other ones, but they had it scheduled the week before, and nobody showed up that week, so they changed it. We finally got 3 of us to go, so we had a quorum. So,
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 6, academic presentation. We have some people from the high school here to give us information about advanced placement courses and standards-based grading. We'll turn it over to Mr. Wolf. Mr. Johnson, sorry.
I'm glad he didn't hear that. Good.
He's too far away. He didn't
Yep.
hear.
So Mrs. Herbal, Mrs. Downing, and Mrs. McKeag will be up here in a little bit to talk about the current AP class offerings that we have at the high school. Just to give a little context of kind of how we've ended up with some AP classes over the last couple of years. We're trying to really find a balance at the high school with as many opportunities as we can for kids. And one thing that we had talked about as a staff, and as these ladies brought up with ideas of they've wanted to teach AP classes. We had not had any offered currently 3 years ago. So as we started to phase these in, it just became obvious that kids were interested in them, that teachers were interested in offering them, and that they became a great opportunity for kids to take some higher level classes and then be able to take that AP test at the end of the term to possibly earn college credit. And even if college credit isn't earned based on the qualifications of having a 3, 4, or 5, depending on what institution they're going to, it's still a good experience for academic rigor to prepare them for college. That's one thing that's consistent in all AP classes. It's no different than what these ladies offer. We're having some discussions as a staff and with a couple of other people. We'll have Tia McEnroy will be going to get certified for AP Studio Art, which is a very unique AP class. We already have Studio Art in the high school, and now these students can turn in their portfolios at the end of the year and get professional feedback and possibly earn some Intro to Art credits going into those. So we are having a handful of kids that are interested in the art field when they go into college. So some of those things, continue to have conversations about how we can expand AP. We would look to maybe get 6 to 8 AP classes offered. I think that's a good mix of what we can offer staff-wide and not sacrifice other things, but also keep the interest of kids because of the level of rigor. So if we can find a good balance between our classes that we're offering and phase in some more AP classes, we'll feel good about where we're at as a high school in terms of offering kids different levels of classes. So ask the ladies to be here today just to explain their classes and how that's come about. And if you have any questions about training or the things that they've been through and will continue to do, feel free to shoot those out their way. But if there's no questions for me about these things, I'd like them to have the floor and present some things.
Is it 2020? Is that your target date to be offering?
Yeah, we would like to have between 6 and 8. We had one a teacher that left the district last year that would have offered a class, so we've got to figure out through the hiring process this year of hopefully getting back that AP chemistry class. So we're interviewing people for that and giving them a couple years to get their feet wet before they get certified to do that.
And for anyone at home who doesn't know what AP stands for, would you share that?
Yeah, AP is Advanced Placement. That's the College Board's name for the classes offered.
And how do teachers need to be certified to teach a AP class?
I might let them talk a little bit
Okay.
more about that because they've been through it,
Okay.
but it's a training in the summer, become certified. And then I think the recommendation is every other year that they get refreshed on those things. So we'll be hopefully sending them back, and it's usually qualified through a grant, so it's a lower cost to us.
Did I hear
So it's a
correctly,
good situation.
Josh, say that 3 years ago, we started just 3 years ago with these? Or did I?
Right, is this second year? The second year with AP Government.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we'll have 4 or 5 next year. I'm hoping to add 2 more after that, and then an 8th one. Yep. All right, come on up, ladies.
So we have a little activity for you. Over that and look between the two of you.
Oh, English and language.
No way.
Hey, this is number 12. This is a good one right here.
Where's the art stuff?
Salinas is over there, like, we gotta remember these. So, maybe I'm gonna begin, right, I'm Sarah Downing, I teach AP government at the high school, and so I brought you a couple sample questions, which were on the neon yellow sheet. And as you are all, elected members of the government, I expect you to be able to ace those. So no pressure, right, no pressure. I do have the answers.
I didn't bring them.
I did. I'll just tell you, just to keep it moving. Maybe if you got it right. The 22 is A, and then 28 is C. Those are the correct answers. So there you go. You test your government knowledge later. Okay. So we kind of did this lovely little introduction activity, and it relates to a meme that I use in my class with my kids, which is just a friendly reminder to them that you can't just walk in and pass the AP exam. You actually have to study. You actually have to learn the content. I'm sure that these ladies would also agree with that, so there you go. And then we also kind of have a class motto, which is to strive for a 5. The AP test is scored on a 5-point scale, so we always say strive for a 5, pray for a 3. Because you'll learn that generally most colleges you have to do a 3 in order to get the college credit for the AP test, so that's just kind of our little class joke. So I'm going to talk a little bit about AP government and politics. These are the course goals and objectives that are aligned by the College Board. I know Lorraine had asked the question about certified. So we took a class at the University of Iowa. I took it not last summer, but the summer before. So it was a 4-day course from like 8 to 5 every day, pretty intense. That went through essentially the goals, the topics, the units that you needed to teach, strategies in order to teach them, and then a little bit about the format of the test as well, which I'll talk about in a second. So in that sense, it's, you know, it's 4 days. And
Could you move up to the microphone for us? Sorry.
I don't like the microphone. So those are my goals. That's what I try to do every day. And then a little bit about the AP test. So my students are taking their test next Thursday. That's the date of the government politics test. It's 2 formats. It's multiple choice. There are 60 questions. The format that I gave you today is from a previous test for that. And they get 45 minutes to complete that, and then they get a break. And then the second portion of the test is the FRQ, or the free response questions. They typically are asked 4 questions that they have to write about. They get 100 minutes to do that, so it's a total of 120 points. Takes them a couple hours, but then they're done for the day. And then, so this is the second year that I've been teaching AP Government, so I have results from last year, kind of in how my students did. I had 19 kids in my class. I do not require my kids to take the test. So those are the kids that took it. I had one student get a 5, which was really awesome, and I told my students I almost fell off the couch when I saw the results. I was like, oh my goodness. There's the breakdown, and then so the average national score for the AP test was about 50% of kids that scored a 3 or above, and in Charles City that was 82%. So for the first year, I was very, very pleased with the success of the implementation of the class, and this is hopefully something we're going to strive forward next week. Keep our fingers crossed. It's you. I'm done.
Okay, so I'm Trudy McKeag, and I teach the, I teach AP Language and Composition, but it's / the dual credit classes. So I was teaching dual credit for NIAC. I've been doing that for like 10 years. And through networking, I met a lady that teaches at Ankeny, and she does the dual credit / AP through DMAC. So I thought, well, why aren't we doing that? So talked to NIAC, I talked to Mr. Johnson, and they said that let's do it. So it's AP Language, English Lang, and Comp / dual credit. So I have about 60 students that take the whole class. Right now, we're testing on May 10th, and we only have like 7 taking the test. But keep in mind, they're going to get the college credit through NIAC. So typically, they only are going to take the test if they're going to go to an out-of-state school that doesn't accept NIAC, or possibly if they're going to go to a private school that won't transfer the NIAC credit in. So we'll see how it goes. We've been practicing since about the first week of school for this writing stuff. So the AP Lang test is a little bit different. They have 52 to 55 multiple choice questions, and they get 1 hour to answer these, 45% of their score. And it's a lot like what they would see on the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, or that kind of Iowa's testing stuff. They get 3 free response questions, and they get 2 hours and 15 minutes to do these, and that's 55%. So the 3 free response questions, there's 3 different types. I gave you guys a synthesis question. They are given that prompt in front of them with 6 sources that they have to use, and we've been practicing with a class period. They get about 40 minutes to do this. So they have to read the questions, or read the prompt, and then read all the material to go with it, and then they have to write a response incorporating 3 of the sources for that kind. And then the next kind, they have to do a rhetorical analysis, where they read a nonfiction text and analyze how the writer's language choices and contribute to his or her purpose and intended meaning of the text. And then there's an argumentative question that they have to answer, and students can create an evidence-based argument that responds to a given topic. So, and they have to do all this in 1 day. And so we have students that are taking both classes, so they'll be testing on Friday for hers, and then they'll be testing for mine in a few more days. So what I've been doing to help them get ready is I started with the rhetorical analysis one, because I thought that would be the easiest for them, but I don't think they think that. And so what we've been doing, and what I did, and what I've been doing all year, is every Friday they would we would do one of those. So when we first started, after they wrote it, I'd say, score yourselves. And they would give themselves a score, and then we'd go through, because AP has tons of resources online. So then we would go through as a group, like how AP scores them. And then I'd say, okay, now you read the examples, rescore yourself. And they were like, oh, we're in trouble. So then after they got used to kind of the language and the format, then we would do them for 3 Fridays in a row, and I'd pick your strongest one. And that's the one I would score. So we did that, and we've done it for all 3 different question types. And then we've done one of the multiple choice. And then, Mr. Johnson doesn't know this. This weekend, I had the kids wanted to meet to run through a test. So I'm going to meet them up at the high school at 8 o'clock, because that's when the test starts. And we're going to do a full test, 3 hours and 15 minutes, and run it like it's being proctored, so they can see what it's like. So, but on top of that, I'm doing all the NIAC stuff. So we're working it in, and I like it.
So I am Stephanie Hervel. I teach the AP Biology. Just a little bit of a rundown. It is designed around the AP Biology curriculum and framework that I went through that training this past summer. It was a 4-day workshop, like Mr. Johnson said, 8 to 5. Mine was a little bit different because it incorporates a lab side of that. So for students that are coming into this class, 25% of that instruction time is in the lab. So along with that labs, they have to write formal lab reports, so they have to become very familiar. They do have written portions as well, and as I have here and what Mrs. Downing has talked about and Mrs. McKeag, they have to have that score of 3 or above. With this being essentially the baseline year for the AP Biology, I don't have any of that data to support how the students have been doing. My test has 2 sections. It is a total of 3 hours. The first section is a multiple choice. They have 63 questions that go through that in terms of multiple choice, and they have 6 grid-in questions, which can be any kind of, they may have to do some kind of calculation. So there is math incorporated into this because they have to do some statistical analysis with information that they have provided in the response or just background information that they should be familiar with. It's 50% of the exam. And then the second part is another hour and a half. Fortunately, my students have been, do we get a break between those 2? And I said, yes, you'll get about a 10-minute break. And they're like, thank goodness. They have 8 questions, 2 of those being long and free responses. One is going to be a lab-based, so they have to give an experimental design. So they're given a scenario, they have to talk about how they would have to design an experiment, what they would predict those results to be based on their experiment. The other 6 questions are short and free response. Typically there is about a 10-minute reading requirement. It is suggested for those 2 long responses for them to spend approximately 20 minutes on those 2 questions alone, and then allocating the time between those other 6 questions as they see fit. And I believe that is what I have. So I know our test is on May 8th. We've had lots of discussion about this test. I have given them several multiple choice practices. The tests that I design in class are definitely work to give them that same experience in a much shorter time. I have been communicating to them that it would be a much longer time during those test days. They do have sample AP exams that they've been given to go home and practice with, and within those, it's got some review material to help them prepare for that as well. So, and my course also has online resources that the students are able to access, practice exams, it gives them feedback. There's a study, self-paced portion for that AP exam, and it will essentially personalize and let the students know where they may be struggling and areas that they may need to be focusing on. So.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Johnson mentioned, but what other, you were talking about adding more courses, what target areas are we looking at adding and expanding?
Studio art for sure. This summer we'll be adding that. We have a unique situation with calculus that we think we might just be able to, we offer that class. We would like to create that and just make it an AP class and allow the kids to take it. The landscape with AP has changed a little bit over the course of the last couple of years. It's a little easier to offer the classes for kids that just want to take the test. There's an AP, online AP Academy through the Bell and Blank Center at the University of Iowa. Just got an email today that one of our students signed up for one of those classes. That we've taken AP Psych. There's AP coding classes, AP Java class that's offered. A couple kids are interested in taking. So there's always that possibility. And then Mrs. Downing and I were just having a conversation, happened to be this morning, that her and Mr. Pittman would entertain getting certified in U.S. history. So we'd be able to offer a section of that. We think that would fill an entire section. Would like to get AP chemistry with whoever we hire in chemistry and physics. Won't be told, but we'll be said we'd like to get AP chemistry here in the next 2 years. And that would cover us in our content areas where we feel like Mr. Pittman has aspirations for AP human geography, for example. Wouldn't have a problem sending him to get trained in that. It's just a matter of where that fits in with our other social studies offerings and if we could fill it. Those are harder to fill than the classes that correspond with the classes they have to take.
You know, I didn't take any AP classes when I was in high school, and as with most kids that transition from high school to college, you know, it was a real eye-opener with the rigors of, you know, the demand of the study and this kind of stuff. And the more opportunities we can give at this stage of the game is going to substantially put those kids ahead of the pack, you know, transitioning into and being successful in that transition. So that was by far my worst semester in school, and that's because you know, the sole reason was I just wasn't prepared, you know, for these kinds of requirements and this kind of stuff that's going on. It was just a whole different ballgame. So thank you guys for taking the time to do that. This is great.
It sounds like an exceptional program for the kids, and, you know, really quite a tough testing process to get through, and a lot of stamina for the students to really go through this, and hopefully they'll all come through with flying colors. Now, if somebody were to, let's say, take the AP biology class, what do they get, 3 or 4 credit hours if they pass that then?
Typically, that college classes, biology as a freshman is going to be a 3-hour course, just lecture side, plus the lab hour. So that's where that 25% of that instructional time is expected to be in the lab. And that it's not 25% and that's all, it can be more, in which with our time frame and our scheduling, that is where we spend a great deal of our time. And I've communicated to students that it's very vital for them to be looking at their textbook and reading and visiting the supplemental resources that I post on Google Classroom, because we do need the class time for them to be able to get through those labs. With our shorter periods in regards with our 8-period day, they come in from the beginning of class, and sometimes, I mean, by their coattails are getting out of the room to get to their next class.
Oh, wow, yeah. Well, it's a huge benefit for the students. I know with Mrs. McCaig teaching Comp 1 and 2, with, you know, the relationship with NIAC, it's been so great for the kids to have those 6 credit hours as they graduate, but we're really offering so much more and more in the future. Great for the kids, big savings for mom and dad.
The other class, language and lit.
Oh.
Lit and comp. Trudy's going to get certified in that this summer, and we'll look to add that year after next to transition that in. So if all those things pan out, we would have 8.
Awesome.
And then
Very good.
Yep, looking for that. So.
Wow. Very good.
Thank you. We're fortunate to have teachers that want to take on the, you know, that's right there's the key. So thank you so much. And thank you for such an excellent presentation that I really don't have any questions. You just told me everything I was going to ask. So.
Do you get the questions right?
What are the answers?
There was a Forrest question on there.
I know it. You kind of went a different direction.
Sorry, I just grabbed 2 questions.
We were hoping you could give the answer.
B and C?
D on the first one, I did look at the second one.
D on the second one or the first one?
Oh, meiosis.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 7, the addition of soccer to high school activities program. We have Todd Forsythe, our activities director here.
All these academic programs take a little hit on activity programs. We're actually working on athletic director's schedule around some of these tests because they do take a lot of time and stuff, but it's spring, so that's part of it. I wouldn't stand up here today if I didn't feel really comfortable about soccer, and not only soccer, but about our community. If you've been to a track meet in the last 2 weeks, you'll notice that we have tons of workers, and in my opinion, those workers give up their time, and we run one of the best track meets, I think, in the state of Iowa. And that says a lot about the people that work, and I can say that about when we held sectional wrestling. I can say that when we host a volleyball tournament. The volunteers and the people that work are there to help and support activity programs. And I think we're at that point with soccer. We're at a point where we have a lot of community support and people willing to step up to the plate. I think we have a community that has been patient and have waited a while for this. We have a youth program, so we have a feeder program into a high school program, which we haven't built, which the community has built on their own with the help of the YMCA. So soccer is knocking at our door. I think this is a perfect time. I think we have a facility in the college grounds that we can make usable and for the kids that we have. The question is the process. I think if we decide to move forward, what is the process going to look like? And I can comment on that or answer questions on a couple different visions. I think we need to get some more input from other sources before we make that final decision of how this is going to look. I think we have some financial support. It appears like to add a soccer program, boys and girls, is going to cost around $20,000 in its first year to get it started and off the ground. After that, I'm more concerned about Jerry Mitchell's budget with buildings and grounds and transportation than I am about the athletic. He has to provide a worker, he has to provide, groom the fields, get the fields ready. Do we have enough bus drivers that we have in our system to be able to haul those spring sports kids? I think the one negative that you will hear and people ask questions about, how will it affect our other spring sports? I do think it will have an effect. Talking to some other schools in our conference that have been in soccer for a long period of time, that they believe it has made their district stronger and their athletic program stronger overall. I don't know that I can predict how it's going to turn out or how it's going to look, but I do think we are in a position right now where we could move forward, and I'm ready and willing to answer questions or take opinions or thoughts or whatever you might have.
I'm surprised, reading number two, will the addition of the activity target a different set of students? So some students are involved in an extracurricular. The survey done this year shows that 133 students that do not currently participate in a spring sport are interested in soccer. Wow.
Yeah, the interest is there. Yeah. Is it going to pull a few kids away? If you look at our spring program, it's fantastic, phenomenal. Over 60 kids in boys and girls track, girls tennis, over 30, boys golf in the 20s. Girls golf is probably our lowest number with, I think we have just 10 girls out. So obviously losing 2 or 3 golfers would have a bigger effect on that program, but it's pretty sport specific when you talk about golf. We have people in our community that use our facilities every Sunday during the winter months for soccer, and it's supervised by adults and parents. And so, just like any sport, I hate to say every sport's year-round, but every sport's year-round. If you want to be good, you got to be committed to it. And when I see a commitment of 6 kids that are willing to drive to Mason City every night to participate. And when you see that they're going down to Des Moines and getting back at 11:30 at Mason City and getting back here after midnight, that's a pretty big commitment. For a high school kid to give that time, they're very sincere about that commitment. And so...
And this is another sport that can carry on to the collegiate level, to the college, that, you know, that we're offering here too, that opens a door for some of these students at the college level that might not have been there.
I don't know a lot about soccer. I'm just going to put that up front.
So where are you looking at having competitions held? The actual...
Inside the
soccer?
track at the college grounds.
Okay.
They're flexible on field size, exact field size for soccer. So we have some flexibility in the design and operation of our field. The nice thing about, I considered the football field, how does that look and what, as far as facility. And the thing you run into is track, obviously. And right now, every night after school, we either have a track meet or we have over 200 kids practicing down there. That facility is used tremendously in April. And the athletic directors I talked to in the conference said, don't do it. Don't use your football field because it just, to schedule everything becomes a nightmare to try to be able to get everything in. And the college grounds is usable. I've talked to some people and they said, well, we played in a lot worse facilities than the college grounds. So this is a work in progress. I think we see how it goes. I think we look at the facility. I think we try the facility. At some point, maybe we need upgrades, but I do think we can use portable bleachers. We have actually a cross-country clock that we have on our trailer that we use for cross-country that we actually could use for soccer. With a few electrical cords out there and stuff, I think we can make it work. But again, it's a starting point, and I think that's what the people in our community are excited about, is a starting point. And I think we go from there.
Those sound like great options, and, you know, anybody who has gone by college grounds on a Saturday and seen all those kids and families and, you know, as little as they are, and then they get into, I don't know what age that group stops, isn't it?
Eighth grade.
8th grade? Okay. And then no more soccer, you know, it's kind of a sad thing for some of those kids to have invested so many years in it, and then it's done, it's over in the community. So I think it's going to be a great thing to add, and awesome.
Won't we be able to develop part of the new land we purchased for the ball diamonds to put a soccer field out there too? Or
I have a preliminary sketch that I just got Friday, that eventually the Buildings and Grounds will probably be bringing it to the board to look at. And a soccer was one thing we included in that facility. So there's options in the future.
I think it's a neat opportunity from like a financial standpoint, because how many different school districts have the available land that they can use and work with the community and the college grounds that basically you could probably almost put a full size, maybe not a full size, but it's a huge field surrounded by a track that just sits there and doesn't get used during the spring sport. And, you know, I'm definitely interested in it as long as it doesn't interfere with baseball, but it's a good thing. You run a lot, so it probably would be the most demanding, you know, from a cardio-wise, other than like a running sport. So, and I heard a lot of kids are happy about it. That when I saw it on the agenda, I was excited, and I know Derek Milligan, he's big on soccer, and so is Nate Baltus, and they were really excited about it. And they've talked to a lot of guys and said it'd be really cool for Charles City to have soccer. So there's definitely a lot of student support into it.
I guess I've always had a question on this. You know, it's the things that have always kind of I thought about are, you know, costs associated with the program, of course, and how do we continue that, you know, especially in years of having had to cut sports in the very, you know, recent history. You know, student participation and interest, you know, is that something that, because, you know, I always look, and I know next to nothing about soccer as well. It's not something that's ever interested me, and but I know it does have great interest. But looking at that, having to have 11 kids on the field at the one time, or as I assume that's correct for the high school
Okay.
level.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. You know, and I done a little bit of research, and they talked that, you know, to have a decent program and a functioning program, the need for 18 to 20 kids out for the sport. So, you know, can we generate 18 to 20 kids, and are we looking at, you know, boys and girls? Can that sustain itself, you know, type of thing? And then, at one time I chatted with you about it, and we talked about the potential for sharing with the surrounding district. Is that under consideration, or do you think we still have enough interest in-house to?
I think we can look at it a couple different ways, and I'm not sure we can make that decision tonight, but we could do a co-ed program. I think we have to look at boys and girls. I think looking at one over the other would be a mistake. I know Garner did that their first year. They did a co-ed. After 1 year, they had enough girls out that they split after 1 year. I was told Mason City did 3 years of co-ed before they went to split programs. I talked to AP, and they actually dropped their boys program. I think they started off sharing with another district, boys program at one school, girls program at the other school, flip-flop every other year. And that is still a possibility for us. There's actually other community meetings being held this week to talk about soccer with some nearby schools. So I think we could potentially do some negotiations. But traveling, you know, the other thing is we host a program and we let other kids come to Charles City, and we charge them like Mason City charges our kids. So we, again, an income source for us. So like I said, I'm not sure the directions of what other schools are going to be going through, or if they're going to come to us and say we're willing to share, you know what I mean, and negotiate some of that. Yeah.
And you and I had talked, so I just want to point this out too. If we were to say, all right, we'll start our own, and then we'll allow another school to send students, we can't allow 3 different schools to send students, because that pushes us up to 3A, the biggest class.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be fair to our students right off the bat, to starting a new program, and we're at the same classification as Mason City and Des Moines and Cedar Rapids.
And you can think of that with I mean, we ran into that in bowling. We had a couple school districts that inquired because they wanted to set bowling over. Well, we have enough kids to have our own program. We weren't sure the first year, but let's write it out and see what the first year looks like. And actually, we have obviously plenty of kids out for bowling, and boys and girls, and JV and varsity, and I'm anticipating that it could end up the same way.
And then, you know, of course, you already hit on it. You know, I always have considered what are the impacts on the other spring sports, and you know, are we going to impact the sport to where it no longer becomes viable in our district, which would then be removing an option. And
right.
And obviously, golf's near and dear to my heart. It's what I put a lot of time into. But I also understand that when we don't have the participation, that it's not easy to continue.
The
those
state
types of
unions, boys and girls associations, are concerned about the overcrowding of spring sports.
Yeah.
There's real concern about soccer, girls soccer going so far into the softball season. They're looking at, we've had communications, they're investigating and done research on changing dates. They've looked at changing sports, certain sports to the fall potentially.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's a problem throughout the state that everybody looks at. How can we do these things so kids have those opportunities? And the state may even come down and dictate some of that.
I agree. You look at girls in the spring, and we would be splitting them 5 ways at that point. Our pool of girls would have, you know, track, tennis, golf, trap shooting, and tennis, and soccer. You know, we've got a limited pool of girls to split 5 different ways, and can we sustain that, or what are the impacts of that as well? So, I mean, I support it if those are, you know, those things are answered. I mean, that we have a sustainable amount of kids that are willing to do it. Do we only have 11 kids sign up and we can't field a competitive team, or is it, you know, those kinds of things are, we saw that with our swimming program.
And to me, that's an advantage of doing co-ed.
Yeah.
I think it guarantees that we're going to have enough for at least a varsity and maybe a JV and a varsity. We do a co-ed. We do a split program and try to run them each independently. I would be concerned about having enough numbers to make that happen. Maybe over time, you know.
Sure.
And maybe we'll find out after 2 years that it isn't sustainable.
Okay.
You know, I don't know how you do it without testing the waters, yeah.
Potential approval tonight just starts the process for you to continue on further
My-
investigation, organizing.
My biggest issue that I need to tackle immediately is putting a schedule together. Because everybody is putting their schedules together right now. I've actually got 3 athletic directors I've said, hold us a spot just in case. And so I don't know that we'll get a full schedule in the first year. It might be 12 games versus 16 or 17 games. But I think for a starting point, again, I think people in our community would be very happy with that.
Well, you can't expect, if you did put a full schedule together, even the half schedule, you can't, it'd be really tight, or like, I don't know, it'd stretch out, it'd be really long for the student athletes, because you can't say that more than 6 people have, played competitive soccer at the high school level, so it'd just be, I mean, I think it's a good thing to implement as well, and kind of get everybody's feet wet with soccer and kind of start developing the program with the underclassmen that turn into varsity leaders over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, approval tonight is just the beginning of all of the work to get everything organized for next spring.
Correct.
We don't have answers to the other 100 questions that are laying out there.
Right. That
Okay,
needs to
and
be,
that's the point I wanted
And we
to.
can't,
Who will be the coach?
Who will be the
Who will be
coach?
playing? All of those things, yeah, that
Yeah,
all will come.
there's a lot of things that will happen over the course of the next few months
to make it happen.
from
to make
you
it a
and your
possibility.
department
Yeah.
to make this happen,
Right.
to make it a viable option.
Yes.
So I don't want anybody to think, we're going full board and we're gonna have 18, 20 games and 30 kids and et cetera, et cetera. We're starting the process with approval tonight to see how this all can play out and how you can get it arranged with coaches and students and everything else.
Yes.
Well,
that'll be
and we applaud you too, Todd, for going the extra mile to work on this and bring this together, because we've heard this from the community, at meetings, out in the community, and there's definitely a need and a lot of interest.
A lot of interest
Yeah.
and support, I
So
think.
thank you.
Yeah.
And a lot of future work.
I'd like to make a motion that we, let's see where we're at here. To approve the request to add soccer to the 2017-18 high school activities program.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the request to add soccer to the 2017-18 high school activities program. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carried 5-0.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Forsythe.
Good luck.
Agenda item 8, enrollment forecast review. Dr. Cox has some information for us.
So you may remember that a couple of years ago, 2014, Iowa School Finance Information Services did an enrollment projection for us, and it used a fairly aggressive model, and they had projected that by 2020 we would be up 90 students. And our reality is that we have not grown. We have been losing enrollment since 2014. So we contacted them, and they agreed to do a revised study for us, used a different model. They have retooled the system since 2014, and they've given us a projection that goes out through 2028. And it has an enrollment projection for fiscal year 18, so the one that's coming up, of 1,506 students. And then it drops down to 1,479 the following year, 1,451, 1,433, and by fiscal year 22, it's at 1,440. And then enrollment is projected to be fairly stable throughout the rest of that decade. So in front of you is just the information regarding what they've done, and the chart that shows you previously what they had projected and what the new projections are. And it also historically takes you back to, I believe, fiscal year 2006. So it kind of gives you a nice big chunk of time to look at and see where we've been and where we are projected to go.
Huge difference,
A big
like
difference.
200 plus student difference.
A lot of difference.
That's, you know,
Yeah.
when we started to see those differences from actual and projected, you know, pretty quickly into their thing, which I lost confidence in it pretty quickly after that. But again, even this, having this available will be critical in decisions in the future, as especially phase 2 stuff or the other infrastructure things and programming, whatever else. So, I'm thankful that they offered us to come back and look at it again, and I wish they were a little more optimistic, but you know, it is what it is. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's a decline rather than the big spike that we were seeing, you know, over time. But seeing this makes it even more important that we did build the middle school, that we have those energy savings, we have the efficiencies of the school and the staff and so forth. And as we move forward with phase 2, you know, it'll allow us to look at that project with the same thoughts in mind and do the
Makes
best
it
we
even
can.
more important to move forward with the phase 2 for energy efficiencies. And a building that used to house 750 plus students that has 500 or less.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna make a big difference on decisions we make in phase 2, just because we're not gonna need as much room as we thought we were gonna need
Yeah.
at their estimate 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
And at the time, I remember the guy told us, well, if this happens, if that happens, and I thought, that, you know, I kind of made a comment, I think that there's quite a few ifs here for them to happen if the right industry moves into town and whatever, all that never happened yet. So, but we still could, but at least it's going to give us a more realistic view of what to look at for phase 2 of the new, whatever we do to the high school.
I can remember one of the biggest ifs I thought was the chicken factory reopening at that time. You know, this was 2.5 years ago, and he said, you know, that was a you know, big thing for this, you know, a critical part of this evaluation and forecast. And then it did happen, but we didn't get the, you know, we're not getting the correlating response like they had, you know, factored into their adjustment before. So.
Yeah, it's puzzling because then you hear other statistics about how, you know, Floyd County has as much factory work as we did, you know, back in the days when we were making tractors.
Yeah, but it was at the end of when the tractor
Population
plant
down.
was
It
closing,
is.
is when our manufacturing,
Yeah.
not in the height of when it was manufacturing.
And I think housing might be a factor too.
Housing's a big factor.
Yeah.
And this again is a forecast.
It's a forecast.
It's a forecast. So somewhere between the yellow line and the purple line, we could end up.
True.
And I look at this and I think we're just going to keep it as a forecast because I feel like when we did do the middle school, we didn't get carried away with space there either. We built efficiency. We didn't add extra rooms for future growth. We don't have empty classrooms or empty places sitting. And we'll continue the same with our high school. And I'm going to hope that we just end up right in the middle of that purple and red line.
Now, when they revisited this enrollment projection, are we getting a bill for this work?
No, they've offered to redo it for us.
Okay,
That's
just
great.
point of clarification for
Yep.
everyone else out there. That this was
Another-
redone at no cost to the district.
Another advantage of our school board convention.
Anything else on the enrollment projection? Moving on to agenda item 9, the middle school west parking lot construction project. This is the time and place for a public hearing. Mrs. O'Brien, did we publicize this public hearing as required by law?
Yes.
Have we received any written comments?
No.
Is there anyone who would like to make a verbal comment on the west parking lot construction project for the middle school?
Only comment I'd like to make is I had a couple people that was talking to me about where it was really gonna be, and I took them back there and showed them, and they said, boy, that was an ideal place for it. I think we made the right decision on where we're gonna be putting
Very good.
It's positive, all positive.
We'll close the public hearing and move on to agenda item 10, the resolution adopting plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated total cost for the west parking lot construction project.
Motion to approve the final plans and specifications, including addendum 1, form of contract, and the estimated cost of $160,374 for the west parking lot construction project at the Charles City Middle School as proposed.
I'll second that.
Agenda item 10 has been moved and seconded as recommended. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Bakehomer,
Yes.
Wittering,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 11, the award of west parking lot construction contract. We have a visitor with us again.
Good evening, everyone. I think everyone's got in their packet a copy of the tabulation of bids. So I'll just do a brief review. We got 5 bids for the project, and they're listed on the bid tabulation in order from the left from the low to the high. So and also I had included, and I believe it's in your packet, there's a letter recommending award to Wicks Construction. They were the apparent low bidder when the bids were open last week. One thing I would just point out, they were about $21,500 lower than our estimate, and that is accounted for in 4 of the bid items. And I think if you have the complete tabulation of bids, those would be items number 5, 7, 9, and 10. Those 4 items account for about $20,000 of that $21,500 difference. So those were the big items that made up for that difference. So, and I would say the main difference in prices, you see those in the high cost items on the project. And that is basically your paving section. So those are items 7 and 8, or I'm sorry, 6 and 7. The aggregate base that we put under the pavement, and number 7 is the actual paving itself. So if you just chase those 2 items across with all the bidders, that's where you see the major difference in the bids from contractor to contractor. So, and as I stated in our recommendation letter, you folks have worked with Wicks Construction before in the middle school. We've worked with them, I worked with them for over 35 years. They're a good, solid contractor. I think one of the reasons why we saw such a competitive bid price from them on the total project is they have a very, very high production rate on placing concrete pavement. And we've worked with them on that same process on several projects, both of the ones that were noted in your letter. It would not surprise me if they paved the majority of that parking lot in 2 days, 3 days probably at the outside.
Excellent.
So very high production.
Excellent.
So that's what kind of separates them from the other bidders. So that's why I think they were able to be so competitive.
Is there I got a friend of mine that works in the rock business, and he says there's quite a difference in quality of grade of rock they use in concrete or for base concrete or base work too. Are they using good quality stuff, or are they just using the cheapest base they can get for their cement and whatever else? I mean,
No,
there's a difference in the rock qualities.
that's a good question, Jim. And as a matter of fact, we require them to use the higher quality of stone in all the concrete. We specify that they use an Iowa Department of Transportation mixed design for the concrete. So they use what we call a class 3 aggregate, which is a very good concrete aggregate. So we shouldn't have any trouble.
Okay, I figured maybe you had a
No, that's,
criteria they had to go by, but I just wanted to
yep,
ask.
good question though.
That was all in our bid specs.
Yes, it
Correct.
was, correct.
In the bid package, there was a requirement for a performance bond, I think. Is that how?
There's a performance bond, a payment bond, and a maintenance bond, a 4-year maintenance bond.
So and I had I had got some feedback from one local small contractor, concrete work, contractor that, that requirement essentially, being able to come up with that cash or that bond up front would kind of eliminated them from competing with this because of the size of the project. Is that typical? I mean, do you see those kinds of things? It obviously happens or must happen, but what are your thoughts there? Is that something in the future? I mean, it was a local guy, it was, but again, it is a bigger project too, so.
Yeah, I think, well, the performance and payment bond, those are something that you're gonna want no matter what. On any public project, you're gonna want a performance and payment bond. I think for smaller contractors, there is a possibility that is something that they can't afford to do. I think on the basis of they might have to borrow some operating capital, prior to the job, but then those are reimbursable costs because you have to include those costs. They're specific to any given project.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's just the cost of doing business. So they can include those costs in, for example, their mobilization item. The problem is they would have to pay for the bond up front, and then they're probably not going to get reimbursed for it until at least a month in when they would get their first payment. So I think that could be where you see some of the
That's what I
issue.
expected, and I didn't, suspect that we were out of line with any other project that goes out by any means. So.
We had some discussion about being done and being out of the way or being able to take care of the situation when RAGBRAI comes to town. And apparently, they agree with everything on that stipulation.
Yes, and actually, we did put some language into the contract documents that made provisions for that. And I don't have the schedule yet, or I haven't spoken with Wix yet to see where they're at, but I don't anticipate that that's going to be an issue, so. Other questions?
Any other questions for Terry?
Motion to award a construction contract for the west parking lot construction project at Charles City Middle School as described in the plans and specifications as follows. The contractor is Wix Construction Incorporated. Amount of bid $138,854.05. Portion of the project base bid $138,854.05. And to direct the President and Secretary to execute contract with the contractor for the construction of the public improvements, such as contract not to be binding on the district until approved by this board.
I'll second that motion.
Agenda item 11 has been moved and seconded as recommended by the superintendent. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Wittering.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Dyton.
Yes, motion carried 5-0.
So our next step would be to get a contracts package to Wix tomorrow, so they can get going and getting all their materials put together. We're going to ask for those back by the end of the week so that we can get them to the district for your legal counsel to take a look at. So as usual, I'll just work with Terry to get through all those materials, and we'll keep the process going. We're anticipating that May 8th meeting, you would approve the contract, so providing everything is in place. And then sometime after that, we'll set a pre-construction meeting and we'll have a schedule. We should have the schedule for your meeting on May 8th, so I'm anticipating. So I'll have more information for you then.
Keep things moving, stay in touch.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Agenda item 12, the credit card policy.
We have a request from our AD to begin purchasing concession stand supplies from Sam's Club. Martin Brothers was our previous supplier, and Todd can talk about this. That agreement ended at the beginning of this current school year. So, you want to fill them in?
What happened with Martin Brothers?
When the school district went away and went with Terhar,
Okay,
we lost our contract with them at the concession stand as well, and they weren't willing to continue with that. So we had to look for alternate options specifically for some food items and candy. We met with Fairway. We have a deal going with Fairway for all our meat products and cheese products and as much as we can get from Fairway. They've been great to work with. They've even delivered stuff to our high school concession stand for us at times, but it's nice because it's local and we can go pick it up. for us to make a profit on candy, grocery store can't, Fairway can't sell it to us where we can make a profit. So if we're going to carry candy in the concession stand, the only way we can make a profit is to probably go through Sam's Club, which a lot of actually concession stands in schools are doing. We have a lot of Booster Club members who make trips to Sam's Club on a monthly or weekly basis. So we have ease of access, and to get the best price, we have to have a Sam's Club membership and a Sam's Club card to make that happen. So I know adding another credit card is not something we probably want to do very often, but it's something that would benefit the Booster Club and the school district and the activities department.
The Sam's Membership Club can also be your credit card with them, isn't that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe so, yes. And we want to set it up so, I mean, we're running all the money through the school. It's not right, so Terry is in charge of all of that, so we would, check out the credit card to someone, check it back in, and it would just be a credit card for Sam's Club, not for any other business or anything.
Thanks for explaining some of that. I had some of those questions and was visiting with Terry earlier, and even to the point to try and understand just how much our concession business is, and it's very significant. And I couldn't imagine, oh my gosh, running all the way to Sam's Club every time you need anything. But you know, if you're talking about just candy, and that makes sense. And thank God for Booster Club members that may be willing to help you out by, you know, when they're down that way to pick it up.
When I started as athletic director 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, I've had some people step up on the Booster Club to say, what are our profit margins? Where can we increase our profit margins? And it has made a tremendous, we've doubled our income in the last 10 years on the concession stand. And that's not the only reason, but that has really helped a lot, the people that have volunteered their time.
That's great.
And they've got probably the biggest selection and the biggest quantities.
It seems that way.
Inflation
I keep
gas
telling
for it.
people we're not a restaurant, but it seems like we are.
You know, and I don't know, I sent an email to Taher to ask him. I don't know that it's possible, but maybe outside of our food service contract, it might be possible to buy some things from them. But, you know, I don't know what they have that you would.
They do have a few things. I'm trying to limit my vendors, so
Yeah.
I'm not, I mean, because we got Pepsi vendors, and then, you know, Fairway, and then Sam's Club. We can limit it to those three. It just helps with
Right.
organizing and collection.
I'm just
and-
thinking of the cost,
Yeah.
you know, and less running around too.
Not as many vendors.
I would think Terry would somewhat appreciate that too, not having so many vendors. Right. Trying to keep it. Yeah.
And I know how tightly she watches over this credit card stuff, so I feel very comfortable allowing this to go. So.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, I move to approve the first reading of Board Policy 401.10, credit cards, waiving the second reading, and to approve the application for a Sam's Club business credit card as recommended.
I'll second it.
Agenda item 12 for the credit card has been moved and seconded as recommended. Mr. Forsythe, May 25th is the first home baseball game. You know, we can have Snickers at Sportsman's Park this summer. Okay. Just checking. If you need somebody to go down and pick up some things, I can head that way for you.
Especially the frozen ones.
Especially, well, they will be, yeah. Any other discussion on the credit card? Roll call vote, please.
Waring,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Baker. Yes. Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 13, mid-year superintendent evaluation.
Thank you.
Going to use this mic so that I can address the board without having to look left and right the entire time. So as part of the superintendent's evaluation process, we go through a mid-year evaluation. We do that periodically throughout the course of the school year. And in the individual administrator professional development plan, it says that in April we will have our last informal check-in before that June summary. So here are the 3 big leadership goals as a reminder that the board approved last fall. Leadership goal number 1 was to create a strategic plan for the school district developed from multiple stakeholder input. That's complete. The board has acted upon that. The second leadership goal was work to enhance the culture and climate of all employee groups across the district. And some indicators of progress were sending 1 to 5 staff to Orange Frog training, monitoring implementation, and then restarting the monthly listening posts. So we've done that. We sent 2 teachers, a counselor, and an instructional coach to the Orange Frog training. 3 of the 4 of them are becoming certified trainers, and the 4th one, who is not, is leaving us at the end of the year to teach in the district where she currently resides. We have 35 employees who went through training March 7th and 8th, another 26 on April 17th. The remaining staff then will be trained in June and August. We've restarted the monthly listening posts. They are the last Wednesday of each month at the elementary. Most of them have taken place at Washington. They have been at Lincoln as well. And then the first Wednesday of each month at the secondary complex. I also began sending out a weekly email to all staff members, a Monday memo that you all are copied on as well. And then that 3rd leadership goal is to work with district staff and our architects, BLDD, on renovating and or reconstructing the 912 facility. And the indicators of progress were focus groups and design process geared toward a referendum vote in 2017. So some of the things that have taken place. BLDD presented us with a menu of options that we could choose with different costs associated with that. And we selected probably 3 of the items that they had proposed and said, no, the rest we'll take internally and do at no additional cost. The board approved the 21st Century Schools Task Force, and we've been meeting since late February. We have site visits that have already taken place to Chanhassen, Minnesota, St. Michael, Albertville, Minnesota, East Ridge, Minnesota, Menominee, Wisconsin, and Waukee, Iowa. We have site visits this week to Duluth and to San Diego, as well as Alexandria, Duluth and Alexandria, Minnesota, and then San Diego. We have some specific visits for food service and performing arts centers that will be upcoming. We had Estes come on February 27th, and they shared their building assessment. The Clio report that BLDD did is completed, and we will share that on May the 8th. And then the task force, that 21st Century Schools Task Force, will report back to the board on May 8th as well. Again, the summative evaluation would be in June. It could be the first or the second meeting in June. I will want to know from the board what data or artifacts that you would like me to bring and a timeline for receipt of that. So how soon in advance would you like it? And then how much would you like me to produce?
I think these are all great. I mean, the strategic plan was, a home run in my opinion. Was well done, and to have that completed already in this year, I think that's a great accomplishment. The goal too, was one that I had pushed for up front and
Right.
things, and I think that these are all great things. I've heard great feedback from the Orange Frog stuff, from my wife and other teachers. They've all been excited about that. I've seen different things on social media, evidence of that success already.
Yep.
With the different, staff stuff, the high five stuff. And
Right.
everything, so.
Spark has appeared many places.
I have not seen him yet at a board
meeting.
board
Yes.
meeting, but,
Hoping he'll make a stop.
I know I'm sure it's frustrating. I know the monthly, the Have Your Say meetings haven't been particularly well attended. That was something that I had heard from staff that they wanted to see, and then, I don't think that they've really come to the table like they should have. So, yeah.
You can look at that 2 ways. I mean, you can look at it and say, boy, I sure wish there were more folks coming. But if there aren't a whole lot of people coming, then that could say, well, I really don't have anything that I'm upset about, and things are going well, so I don't have a need to go to a meeting that's at 7 a.m., and that could be the challenge as well. I don't know, but we have good discussion for those who do come. And I think it's been a really helpful way to exchange information back and forth.
Well,
Well, I also think it's helpful because we are giving them an avenue. If they do have something, it's there. Even
Right.
if it isn't well attended, it's there.
In the Monday memo thing, you know, I really like that stuff. You know, I look forward to our Friday, finally Fridays I call it, Friday focus thing. But just the more information we can put out to staff and the district folks there, that keep them informed on the decision-making process and what's going on in the district, the more comfortable they're going to feel with that. And I think that has a direct correlation to a better, you know, culture and climate in the district. I like measurable things, you know, and you've heard me say before, I'd like to see a survey or something measurable, some sort of badge. And
Right.
that's, I know it's not easy, and I know that, you know, we've had conversation back and forth about it. Maybe it's down the road, it's something we can implement, but.
Well, the coaches did do a survey, the instructional coaches, before we really got going this year, and then they'll do one again at the end of the year, and they'll have a measurement of where were teachers at the beginning and at the end, and it ties into culture and climate as well. We have looked for some culture-specific surveys. The free one that you had found, of course, was out of business by the time you found it, and the ones that charge a hefty fee for it.
Sure. And I, you know, I think the different things that we're starting to do with the staff shadowing, I mean, we're going to get more feedback. I get feedback from a particular set of peers that happen to be teachers, and I hear and I can gauge, you know, in my own opinion, where they were at and where they are now, type of thing. I don't know that we all have that same opportunity. Is part of the struggle with that, you know, avenue of measurement, I would say. But I would be interested in the survey, you know, when it comes back, if in the future, if we do have an opportunity to implement some other sort of survey system, or I'd be very interested in implementing something like that too. So. We spend a lot of time and a lot of money in things like Orange Frog and different things. You know, I just like to see a measurement of how successful they are.
Sure.
Well, I would say Leadership Goal 3, working with the district staff and BLDD on renovating and reconstructing the facility. You know, we're off to a good start, I feel, and we've got, you know, a large committee. Not everybody's coming to the table. That's kind of unfortunate because we have board members, teachers,
community members,
and I would like to see maybe some more of them coming to the meetings that are not, but they are. Some of them are coming and they're faithfully there every meeting. And it's so important to have their input and have them understand from the teachers and from these visits that we're all going on to all of these different schools throughout the region, you know, just what we are opening our minds to. And, you know, I'm often asked, you know, where are you guys going? What are you doing? And, you know, what schools in Iowa are you seeing? And we're just saying the one school, Waukee.
Well, we have sent a group to Waukee.
Yes.
And we will be sending a group as well to Gilbert and potentially to Ballard.
Oh, good, okay. And you know, part of the reason for that is, well, we built an extraordinary middle school. And we built something that has been dubbed the classroom of the future, and that may not exist in Iowa.
And there just really aren't examples in Iowa, yeah.
Right. So,
Are you looking at that task force report on May 8th? You're still looking for that timeline to happen?
Yes.
We didn't video record the Phase 2 meetings, did we?
no.
No.
We may have missed an opportunity there now that I realize when we start talking about this. I've been only able to make it to the one meeting, and listening to the enthusiasm and the reports back from the staff and the individuals that went was almost contagious. The excitement that they had from seeing that, like the Chanhassen example, and explaining why they had to go to there, because it was something that was so different that they hadn't seen before. And then they turned around and the same day had seen another school that was total opposites, and how much that had made an impact on how much even they appreciated what we had going on here. And I think conveying that to the public at some point.
Well, I think our local press has done a pretty good job, too, of covering those meetings, because they are public meetings, and reporting out what is being discussed. So I don't think we've totally missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
And hopefully at the May 8th, we can capture.
Capture as much of that as we can. And
If you and I are gonna go somewhere, we need to do it next week then, yes?
no.
No? Okay, then we're not going.
You know, anyhow, it's a very
You
good
don't have
process.
time next week
And,
either?
you know, the last time BLDD was doing a lot of these types of things with us, but this time they are not, because we chose to save some of that money and do some of those in-house ourselves, as you mentioned.
Correct, and they will still do the charrette process like we did
Yes.
last time.
Yes.
That's something that we asked they do for us. So, yeah, they had sent someone to ride along when we went on the trips to Independence and Waukon and places in between, but not this time.
Yeah, yeah. So we do appreciate you going the extra mile to make this all come together for us.
What data artifacts are the
So, yeah, again, what would you like to receive, and then what sort of timeline? Do you want it by June 1st, and then do the summative at the end of the month?
See, to me, it looks like I've already received the data.
No, this is all about the individual administrator professional development plan, but you also will have to comment on the 6 standards for school leaders.
You gave us plenty of lead time last year, even though we all did it the night before.
And I had to summarize it 2 hours before the meeting, so homework was accomplished on time.
I think that's an adequate timeline.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe by like Friday, June 2nd, or Monday,
Yeah.
June 5th.
That sounds fine.
Sure.
After
Okay.
graduation, yes.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 14, the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed below, or presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 15, correspondence and miscellaneous.
Again, we have one more task force meeting. We've got a regular board meeting back in Charles City on the 8th. And then we get into the season of end-of-year award banquets and other types of celebrations. And so those are listed for you as well.
I realized as I was going through the agenda again, the week of all of the end-of-the-year activities, I'm going to be out of state this year, so I will not be able to attend any of those retirement teas or class days or et cetera.
Okay.
I'll be out of state for work that week. Having no other business to come before the board, we will adjourn at 6:18 p.m.